with big pedigrees, more complex pedigrees. So our last lecture was simple pedigrees. So in order to show you big pedigrees, more complex pedigrees, and how to do them, we're going to do some sample problems together. Now, you need to have this paper nearby. What does the paper look like? It looks like this. All the information you need is right here on the sides. It's all this information. This is where I'm getting my information. So if you hear me saying stuff about if this, if that, I'm getting it from here. This is number 1, sex-linked. Number 2, autosomal recessive. And number 3, autosomal and dominant. Okay, so you need this paper with you when you do these. If you're wondering where I'm getting information, what I'm saying, I'm reading it from here. That's where I'm reading it from, or I know it in my mind, but that's where I'm getting it from. You can read it on here. So we don't have this information in front of us when I explain it, but you need to have it right next to you. So it won't be on the board, but you need this next to you. This is where I'm getting the information from, okay? I'm going to be using this information, all right? So let's go through them, all right? Now, the rules are interesting, all right? And I mentioned them to you in the last lecture. So let's go through the rules. First thing it says, can you disprove whether this characteristic that's being passed down, and I'll slide this up, can you disprove whether this characteristic is being passed down from parent to offspring? Can you disprove that it is sex-linked? Okay, and sex-linked is automatically recessive, all right? If you cannot disprove sex-linked, then guess what? You have sex-linked. It is sex-linked if you can't prove it wrong, okay? But if you prove it wrong, then you move on to number 2. Second says, only do this step if you first disproved the other step. Okay, so you can only do the step if the first step is disproved, and the first step is sex-linked, disproving sex-linked. All right, so you don't go to number 2. You do not look at autosomal recessive number 2 until you've proved sex-linked as not being accurate. Okay, you only go to number 3 if you've proved 1 and 2 incorrect. Then you go to number 3. Okay, so I'm going to slide this information up and let's do this pedigree. All right, so here's the questions you're going to see on your test. The first question when you do a pedigree is, what is the inheritance pattern? That means, is it number 1, sex-linked? Is it number 2, autosomal recessive? Or is it number 3, autosomal dominant? And by the way, in case you forgot, autosomal only means not sex-linked, no X's and Y's. Okay, so we want to see, how is this characteristic passed from parents to children? In which manner is it passed? You first got to go through sex-linked, okay? So rule number 1 for sex-linked. Rule number 1, if sex-linked, if mom has it, all of her boys must also have it. Now you have a bigger tree. You have 3 generations, which means you need to check every generation to see if you can prove it wrong in every generation, okay? So let's do the first generation. Mom doesn't have it, doesn't apply to the first generation, that rule. And the second generation, oh look, mom has it and her boy has it. Okay, so that works so far. Mom has it, her boy has it. Over here, mom has it, her boys have it. Okay, so far, sex-linked works, so far. All right, rule number 2, if a female has it, then her father must have it. This is a sex-linked rule number 2. If a female has it, her father must have it. She has it, her father has it. Okay, that works. Down here, they don't have it, so it doesn't apply to them. We're not proving it wrong. If it doesn't apply, you haven't proved it wrong. Okay, so there's nothing going on down here. They don't have it, so we don't even bother with them. Over here, they don't have a daughter. Okay, she has it, but she is not their daughter. She's married to their son. She's their daughter-in-law, so she does not have it. I mean, she has it, but we don't know what her father looks like. Okay, so it doesn't apply. All right. Rule number 1 and 2 haven't proved anything wrong yet. Rule number 3, if mom and dad both have it, all their children must have it. See that right there? That's the only place we have mom and dad both have it. Mom and dad both have it. And look, no, not all of their children have it. Therefore, we have just proved this one to be not sex linked. This is not sex linked, okay? So we know it's not number one. Mom and dad have it, all their kids must have it. Not sex linked. We just proved it wrong, okay? So now you go to number two. Number two is autosomal and recessive. Autosomal and recessive, number two, only has one rule. Only one rule for number two. The rule is, if mom and dad both have it, all their kids must also have it. Look at that. Mom and dad have it, and all their kids don't have it. So guess what? We just proved number two wrong also with the same rule as number one. Now we're left with number three. It's not one, it's not two, it has to be number three, which makes this autosomal and dominant. Autosomal dominant is what we have, okay? You need to have this paper in front of you right here, and at the bottom here of this paper are the labels for autosomal dominant. You take those labels and you put them right on your pedigree. Now, you are going to need to print these out. If you're doing them at your house, you need to print them out off your computer or redraw them. You cannot do these digitally. There's no digital working on pedigrees. This is why I'm telling you, you needed to print your notes out. You have to write this information directly on your pedigree. So all I'm doing is I'm taking the information from here, right, from here, and I'm putting it on your pedigree for number three, because we've proved one and two wrong. It has to be number three. So here's what you label it with number three. Anyone shaded in gets a capital A and a blank. Anyone not shaded in gets lower cases. Okay, so all I did is I took that information and I copied it onto it. This is why you're going to need to print these or redraw them. Okay, beware that you're going to have to do this on the test. You're probably going to have to do this on your assignments. You're going to have a copy of them. On the test, we're going to make them smaller so that you can draw them really quick if you'd like to. Okay, so now, once you've done this, you've labeled it, you're not done yet. It says label all genotypes. I want to know their exact genotype. So we got to go back and see if we can fill in those blanks. Okay, let's start at the top. This one, we have a blank right here. Look, his son has two small a's. One came from mom, the other came from dad. All right, look at this person here. Capital A, that can only come from there. There's no capital A there. Capital A right there. What letter comes here? The lowercase a. Okay, this person right here, that's not their parents, but those are their kids. Right there. So this person here made these kids. Small a, what did the other letter come from? Right there. Okay, look at this person here. We have a blank here. Capital could have came from either parent. We don't know which one gave the capital A. They both have a capital. They both have a lowercase. This other letter could be a capital or a lowercase. You leave it blank. We cannot determine for certain what it is. Then we go over here. Okay, let's do these ones down here first. Look at that dad. Small a, small a. So what's the letters he's going to give his kids? Lowercase, lowercase. Okay, finally over here. Oh, this is another one. They could be capital A. Okay, we know they gave capital A's. The other letter could be lowercase or capital. We don't know for certain. It could be either letter. You leave that blank and you leave that one blank. This is how you analyze, in this case, an autosomal and dominant pedigree. You first prove one wrong, then you move to number two. If you prove number two wrong, you move to number three, and you start labeling it number three. And then you try to fill in your blanks. That is how you do a pedigree. That's sample number one. Okay, now let's try sample number two. Okay, now we got to look at sample number 2. Let's do another one. Now, this one is drawn a little differently. You'll see over here, there's generation, Roman numeral 1, generation 2, generation 3, and finally down here, generation 4. This person here is 1-1. This person here is Roman numeral 1-2. This person here, Roman numeral 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, 2-4, 5, and 6, 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, and so on. That's how you look at who is where. Now, let's do this one together, okay? Now, this is sample problem pedigree number 2. Just like all the other ones, you need to figure out the inheritance pattern. So there's a few people on here that have them, okay? How did they get this characteristic? How was it passed down to them? Was it number 1, sex-linked? Was it number 2, autosomal, not sex-linked, and recessive? Was it a recessive characteristic? Or number 3, is it autosomal, not sex-linked, and dominant? Is it a dominant characteristic? So we want to know, is this dominant? Is this recessive? Is it sex-linked? What is it? So you start with number 1. Okay, so we begin. Rule number 1, sex-linked. If mom has it, all of her boys must have it. We don't have a mom on here anywhere that has it. So that rule does not apply to it, okay? If it does not apply, you haven't proven it wrong. It just means it's not applying. The rule doesn't apply. So far, rule number 1 for sex-linked doesn't apply. That means we have not proved it wrong. Rule number 2, let's do the second rule for sex-linked. The second rule for sex-linked, if a female has it, her dad has to have it. We don't have any females that have it. So the rule does not apply. So the second rule also doesn't apply to this one. We haven't proved it wrong yet. Rule number 3, our final rule for sex-linked. If mom and dad both have it, then all of their children must have it. We don't have anywhere on here where mom and dad both have it. That rule doesn't apply. So rule 1, 2, and 3, they don't apply to it. Sex-linked, all the sex-linked rules do not apply. Guess what? Your notes say, if none of the rules apply, you didn't prove it wrong, therefore it is sex-linked. So since you cannot prove it wrong, guess what? You have sex-linked, okay? So what am I going to do next? I take my paper, that paper I told you need to refer to, and you have all these labels right here. See all these labels right here? My fingers are pointing at them. You got to put all these labels, these sex-linked labels, on your pedigree. So I'm going to transfer that information here, and then we go back afterwards and try to fill in any blanks. Okay? So I'm going to transfer that information. I'm going to write it on the board. Write this on your pedigree. Okay? Making sure you can see it. Good. You see that okay? There's a blank there. Good. Okay, took a little while. So all I did is I took my sex-linked information from that paper and I transposed it onto my pedigree. We did not prove sex-linked wrong. Actually, all the rules didn't even apply to it. Therefore, we never were able to prove it wrong. So then we labeled it using the sex-linked labels. Now the rule is, so let's write here, sex-linked. Okay. And sex-linked is automatically recessive. The next step, label all the genotypes. So you got to go look wherever you have a blank and see if you could label in the genotypes. Let's start at the top. May as well. Okay, so we have a parent here, has a blank. Okay, let's look at one of their children. Look at this boy. Look at this boy. The Y, moms don't have Y. So if a boy has a Y, he can only get it from dad. So that Y came from dad. That means the other gene, this X with the small a right here, this came from mom. Dad gave the Y. This small a came from mom. Has to come from mom if dad gives the Y. Okay? The next one, we have a blank here. Okay? Interesting. We have a blank right there, and they have kids. Let's look at it. Let's look at their parents first. X capital A. That could come from dad, because dad doesn't give girls Ys. Okay? But mom has a capital and a lowercase. We do not know exactly what mom's other letter is right there. Okay? We don't know it right now. Over here, let's look at this blank down here. That daughter made that boy. Okay? Where did the Y come from? This Y down here, this Y came from dad. That small a had to come from mom. Okay, and now let's go back here. We have a small a here. We still can't prove that that's also a small a. We cannot prove it. Okay? All right? So, wait a minute. Let's go. Oh, sorry, I messed up there. We can prove it. Look, this X capital A came from dad. Where did that small a come from? This small a had to come from mom right there. Had to. Okay? So this helped us prove it. Capital A, that lowercase a, we proved it here, came from mom right there. All right? Then we go over here. Okay? Here's another child. We have a blank here. Look, dad gave an X. What is the only X dad has? It's a lowercase a. That's the only X that dad has. Then we come over here and we look at this person. The Y came from dad. Dad is the only one that has Ys. Dad gave a Y. This lowercase a came from mom. Okay? Finally, we're left with this person here. That uppercase A, dad only has an uppercase A. Mom has both. We have a blank here. This is the one we do not know. Okay, we do not know this one. And then we go back over here to this one. We do not know that one either. Look at this one here. Look, here's our child, okay? X capital A came from mom. X lowercase a, this lowercase a came from dad. This other letter could be a capital or a lowercase. We do not know exactly what it is. So we have two blanks here, a blank here, a blank there, and a blank down here. We have three blanks. So on the test, the questions I can ask you, I can say, how many people are you uncertain about their genotype? Okay, uncertain about their genotype? 1, 2, 3. Uncertain about their genotype. Okay, or I can say to you, what is a specific person's genotype? Okay, so remember the rules. If you can't prove sex linked wrong, guess what? You have sex linked, and that's what happened with this problem. Okay, now let's try sample problem 3. Okay, here we go. Let's do sample problem number 3. All right, sample problem number 3. Remember, just like all the other ones, you start over, you go back to sex linked every time. So let's go over the rules of sex linked. And what am I doing? Just as a reminder, I'm reading these rules right here on your paper to you. Rule number 1, okay? If sex linked, okay? Rule number 1, if sex linked, if a female has it, all of her sons must have it. She has it, he has it, he has it. Okay? So far it works. She has it, but we don't know what her sons look like. Okay? Rule number 2, if a female has it, her father must have it. We don't know what her father looks like, so that doesn't apply. Oh, but look down here. She has it, her father doesn't have it. Oh, we just proved sex linked wrong. Once again, the rule is if a female has it, her father must have it if it's sex linked. Her father doesn't have it. We just proved sex linked wrong. It's not number 1. This is not sex linked. Okay, so now we got to go to autosomal. We got to check number 2 next. The rule for number 2 is the following. There's only one rule for number 2. The rule for number 2 is if mom and dad both have it, all of their kids must have it. We don't have that on here. It doesn't apply. But just because it doesn't apply does not mean it's not true. Okay, so that's the only rule you have to prove wrong. And that rule, you couldn't prove it wrong. It doesn't apply. So guess what? We proved number 1 wrong. We proved sex linked wrong. We have not proven number 2, autosomal recessive, wrong. Since we cannot prove it wrong, guess what we have? We have number 2. We have autosomal and recessive. So let's do this one. Autosomal recessive. This is number 2. How do we know? Number 1 was proved wrong. We don't go to number 3 until we prove number 2 wrong. All right. So let's label genotypes. All I'm doing is I'm taking the information, okay, right down here, right here. I'm labeling the labels that are on your paper. Okay, right there. See them right there? My finger's pointing at them. Those are the labels I am labeling on this pedigree. So if it's recessive and not sex-linked, this is what we would have. These are the labels that we are transferring over. Okay, then once you've labeled it, I've labeled everything number 2, autosomal recessive. Then you got to go back in and see if you can label the blanks. So let's see if we can label blanks, all right? Let's go to this parent here. What's his other letter? Oh, look, that's his son. Small a from there. The other small a has to come from the other parent. Each parent gives half the DNA, in case you forgot. You can't give your kid both of your letters. You can only give them one of your letters. So if one parent gives one letter, the other parent has to give the other letter. All right. So let's go over here. That's their daughter. Capital A came from there. The only letter they can pass down, lowercase. Let's go to this person. Look at his children here. They have lowercase a's. They have to come from mom and dad. Over here, capital uppercase A could come from both parents. Both parents could also give an we could get a capital A and a capital A. This could be a capital A lowercase a. We do not know. So you're going to leave it blank. That's an uncertain genotype. You're not positive. Over here, look, that is their son. That's the father. Father has small a's. So he has to give them small a's each. That's all that he has to pass down. But we have a blank over here. This blank could be capital A, or it could be capital A lowercase a. We're not certain what it is. So we have 2 blanks on this particular pedigree. Okay? Any questions? Email me. Let me know. I understand they're difficult. I just showed you how to do one of all 3 types. Okay? I'll make another video showing you how to do 3 more different kinds also.